Beautiful, Lord. Thank you, thank you. Just stay in that. I want to stay in that all the time. Don't you want to stay in that vibration all the time? That beautiful... Well, you can. Nobody's stopping you. You're distracting yourself from your own peace and your own joy. Today I want to talk about peace and power. I want to talk about how peace is power. And I want to experience that peace and that power today. I don't just want to talk about this stuff. I want to experience it deep in my heart and soul. Because I know that true peace, once it is achieved, that's the real power. That's the thing that can create the world, any world that you can imagine. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. So I'd like to look at what is peace. I'd like to look at what is true peace. Once we find true peace, how can that be maintained? And once we begin to maintain that true peace within us, how it becomes an unstoppable spiritual power. I think the greatest example of peace is power was the experience of Jesus and his disciples when they were out on the ocean. A lot of us can relate to the ocean because we live here. We've been out on a boat, and we may have been out in a storm, and we may have gotten afraid of that storm. When the disciples were out on the boat with their master in a storm, it began to rage. And he was sleeping on the boat. Like Karen, she sleeps on her boat in the summer. He was sleeping, and they were saying, how can he sleep when there's this storm going on? Many people ask me, they say, how can you be so happy? How can you be so peaceful when this storm is going on in our country and in the world? And I say, because I found something else that's true and lasts forever. All these storms, they pass, but this peace does not pass. This is the peace that passes all understanding. So when the disciples were in the boat with Jesus and there was a storm and they said, how can he sleep? And they woke him up. He says, what are you doing waking me up? What's wrong with you guys? That's my version. I was going to read it to you, but my version, I think, is more entertaining. And you probably remember it. You've heard that story 100 times, spoken as if it were somebody else. But imagine yourself in the boat, and there's a storm, and you wake up your master, and he says, what the heck are you doing? It's just this. And he stood up, and what did he say? Peace. Be still. The storm subsided. And his disciples said, what kind of a man is this, that even the wind and the waves obey his words? But who was he saying, peace, be still to? Himself. He was in the awareness that his mind was the one creating the world in which he lived. And when he said, peace, be still, he was in the awareness that the wind and the waves and the water are not separate from his own mind, and neither were his disciples. So when we say together, peace, be still, we're telling our own minds, be still. Now, how does the world look to you? Well, I see all this craziness, and I still see all of this, and I'm still angry. Peace. Be still. Train your mind. This is a mind training. This is a practice of putting spiritual principles into action in my life. This is a practice of putting truth into action through my mind in my life, constantly. Because otherwise, I'm constantly doing the opposite. I'm feeding the storm. I'm feeding the disruption of my peace. We have been taught and we are under the impression that everything's happening out there, including the wind and the waves. And you say, of course, that's just the way it is. No, peace, be still. Even the wind and the waves obeyed the mind that knew it was one with all of creation. And maybe our learning process is going to take a little longer. Jesus needed a rapid learning process to fulfill his function in this world, but you have a function as the holy child of God to fulfill in your life. And your process is going to be what it's going to be. But the same action is required for you to say to yourself, peace, be still. Spirit will take care of the rest. I've been taught in Unity to put forth your intention and leave the how up to Spirit. How are we going to do this? Leave that up to Spirit. Your job is to affirm the truth. The first thing we must get clear in our minds is that peace doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean giving in. It doesn't mean conquering or subduing or eliminating something that we don't agree with or something that bothers us. It's not an escape from the world. It's a translation of the world into truth. Because all of the world and everything in it is made up of the same stuff. That's God's stuff. There's only one element making up all of this, including you, and that's God. Whatever you want to call God, Spirit, the universe, truth, the source, it doesn't matter. There's only one thing, and it makes up everything. We are the ones that define it and separate it and put it into forms according to our own perceptions. And those perceptions have never brought us peace. So when your mind's going crazy, remember, be still. Tell your mind. Whether it's looking outside or inside, it doesn't matter because they are connected. I remember I was in a theological argument with a born-again Christian one time, very traditional, very right-wing minister, and I love this guy. And we were completely opposite ends of the spectrum in our view of God and Christianity. And so at one point in the argument, conversation, I used an old Hebrew trick. It's the word Selah. Everyone say that word. Selah. Once again, Selah. One more time. Selah. Isn't that nice? It means peace. Be still. Selah, selam, paz. Tranquilo, tranquilidad. Peace. Be still. However you want to say it. It's going to bring forth an energy. And in that moment, our conversation ceased to be an argument. And we were in a shared experience. Even though our theologies were quite apart, in that moment, we were together. And that was a wonderful moment for me. I said, you know what? Doesn't matter the nuances of what you believe or what I believe. There is a force called God that loves us both the same. And I gave him a big hug. And I said, God bless you on your way. And I went my way. And that's okay. Because I learned later on, several years later, from A Course in Miracles, that a universal theology is impossible. It's not going to happen. But a universal experience is not only possible, it's necessary. And I'm here to tell you, it's happening. And it's available. And it's available here and now when we say, Selah. Here we are together in the peace of God. The peace of God is shining in me now. Jesus said to his disciples on his way out of here, He said, my peace I leave you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, but do I give unto you. But as the Father has given me, I give unto you. He went on to say later on that I am in the Father, the Father's in me, and I am in you. The Father, Mother, God is what I am. Peace is what I am. Peace is in you now. From lesson 188 of A Course in Miracles, it's called, The Peace of God is shining in me now. This is the message directly from our way shower Jesus through A Course in Miracles to you right here and right now. The peace of God is shining in you now, and from your heart extends around the world. It pauses to caress each living thing. It leaves a blessing with it that remains forever and forever. What it gives, what you give, must be eternal. The peace of God in you removes all thoughts of the ephemeral and the valueless. It brings renewal to all tired hearts. It lights all vision as it passes by. All its gifts are given to everyone, and everyone unites in giving thanks to you, you who give and you who have received. So what we're talking about here is the kind of peace that passes understanding. The kind of peace that's an experience so deep, so profound, that it's literally imprinted on the cells of your being. It's imprinted, that memory of peace is imprinted in your soul. And when you dwell there, you give others permission. Not only permission, but they cannot help but come into that peace in your presence. I try to create that environment for myself throughout the week. Anyone who comes into my office, you can feel it, right? Because that's the deep peace that I want to be in when I'm just by myself, when I'm by myself with God. And take that feeling, that experience that you have from your moments of communion with the Creator, from the communion with your source, and bring it to everyone. Because if you're experiencing it, that's the only way somebody else is going to feel it. It's not a concept or a theology. It's a true experience. Wes would call it spiritual energy that we're sharing. And I love that idea because it's something that is just going to come extending from you without you doing anything. It's actually coming from your peace. The power of that spiritual energy is coming from your tranquility. It's coming from your knowing, your inner knowing. Deep down, you know. You know how the universe really is. You know the love of God in you. You know that peace. And you are sharing that with everyone, whether you know it or not, whether you're aware of it consciously or not. And that energy is not something that comes and goes. It's something that actually builds. Once it's reached a certain level, it just doesn't disappear. It keeps growing. It keeps extending. The only trick is to keep your mind aware of it, to keep yourself in the experience. That's why we practice spiritual principles, to keep ourselves in that experience. This is the kind of peace that holds us together as one in recognition of God and of God's love in us. This is the kind of peace that heals the sick and mends the brokenhearted. This is the kind of peace that's that's going to bring the whole world back to balance. This is the only thing that will bring us back to balance, harmony, and mutual respect and love for each other. It's this peace within us. Because no matter what's going on in the world, you cannot touch that peace. It's there. Once you've felt it even a little bit, nothing can take that from you. The kind of peace we're talking about is what you are in truth. And it's the way you maintain The way you maintain the awareness of it is by being in the peace, by giving it away. It's the only way to maintain anything is by giving it away. Because the more you give, the more you receive. Because, again, from lesson 188, the peace of God can never be contained. It keeps expanding. It keeps extending. It keeps touching more and more of you and more others. The peace of God can never be contained. Who recognizes it within himself must give it. And the means for giving it are in his understanding. That's where all the teaching and the learning of the principles come in. Is the way to maintain the peace are in our understanding. You forgive because you've recognized the truth in yourself. The peace of God is shining in you now and in all living things. In quietness, it is acknowledged universally. For what your inward vision looks upon is your perception of the universe. Oh, your eyes glaze over during that one. What your perception looks upon is what your inner vision looks upon becomes your perception of the universe. In other words, how you see yourself, what's in your consciousness, is how you see the universe. And it cannot be otherwise. Even if there's an amazing, incredible universe out there, if you think the earth is the only thing that exists, you're not aware of everything else. Even though the earth was spherical and people thought it was flat, they weren't aware. They weren't willing to accept it into their consciousness. Even though that the earth was revolving around the sun, it was a crime to say that, it was a crime to say that the earth wasn't the center of the universe and everything revolved around it. At one time, 500 or 600 years ago, it was a crime to be a scientist, to be a mathematician, and to say that no, the earth is actually revolving around the sun. Why? Because it broke up the old thought system. So let's take a look at our old thought system and what's not working for us. And let's take a look at how incredibly obvious it is that the ego is just resisting change and resisting the truth and resisting facts. Why? Because it wants to maintain its false existence. And its false sense of power, my friends, because that is not true power. Control over others, control over information, trying to control what people think. That's not power. Going out and killing somebody, that's not power. Peace is power. Peace, certainty of who we are. Certainty of the truth and expansion of that truth always. Because truth is always growing. It never, ever will ever stop. And you can say, this is the way. That's why we say in the beginning, no one path is right for everyone. Because your path is always evolving. My path is evolving. My awareness of God and of truth is evolving. And what I want to create in my life, and hopefully we share together, is a place of peace where we can evolve together, to be safe, to discover the truth together. So the truth is, I've got you now. The truth is, I can't give you the truth. I don't know any more than you do. That you're discovering it for yourself right in this moment. And it's your own personal experience. But we can discover a place together of peace where we can have that experience of discovering the truth for ourselves. We can acknowledge fundamental truths conceptually, and we must do that to get it in our understanding that it is true. We say every week, let there be peace on earth. And let it begin where? Of course. But how often do we blame others for there not being peace on earth? How often are we not peaceful during the week? So if we really truly want peace on earth, we're not going to resist evil. We're going to cultivate peace. And that is your power. That empowers you. That takes all your power back. You're not giving it away to those you disagree with. You're taking it back for yourself. Practicing the law of mind action is what we're going to do. It takes consistent effort on my part. The law of mind action is what? Anybody know? You got it? Exactly. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So whatever you're holding in your mind is the universe you're producing. That's just what A Course in Miracles just told me. What I see through my inner vision is my perception of the universe. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Amazing. So what I'm talking about, though, is a thought so powerful it can calm the wind and the waves. I'm talking about a thought so powerful it can bring humanity back to balance. I'm talking about a thought so powerful, there really isn't a name for it, but let's call it peace. Let's call it peace. And let's say some truth about that peace, that it does begin with me. Peace in me, peace in the world. Let's say that together. Peace in me, peace in the world. Peace in me equals peace in the world. Peace in me equals peace in the world. I am peace. Everybody say that after me. I am peace. I didn't feel that. Come on, I need to feel it. I am peace. I am love. I am joy. I am prosperity. I didn't feel that one. I am prosperity. Thank you. I am power. I am peace. I am love. I am joy. I am prosperity. I am power. I am that I am. Ah, Selah. And so it is. So the only conclusion I can come up with is if you want peace in the world, you have to be peace. I love those affirmations because they're true. It's the closest we can get to having true perception, is to say those affirmations. And it's so simple. Because they are true, they work every time. I am peace. I am power. I am that I am. And so it is. Amen.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.